Hello, you all. This is Baron Baptiste. Welcome to Disrupt the Drift. Share the show, leave comments. If you're watching on YouTube, we drop these twice a week. We are going to talk today about choice. Do you have choice in your life? Do the choices you make in your life determine your life, your quality of life, style of life, a life well lived? Does choice matter? And do you actually have choice? Can you change a gray hair black? David, how you doing?
Fantastic. Always great to be here, Baron.
Yeah. David, we wanted to talk about choice and free will. And I asked you the question the other day. I sent you a text. I'm like, dude, do you believe in free will? And you're like, we should talk about that.
It's a great topic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. What do you see about free will, which is where we actually have choice in life about how we live? Is that right?
Everything, every little tiny thing like sands of going through the hourglass is about choice, aka free will. Now, here's what C.S. Lewis said about it. If a thing is free to be good, it is also free to be bad. And free will is what has made evil possible. Why then did God give them free will? Because free will, though it makes evil possible, is also the only thing that makes possible any love or goodness or joy worth having. In other words,
it's like you could choose love or
let's just
hate.
say,
But
I
is
saw
it
this
a choice?
Yeah, I will give you just a simple example in physics. If you only have two dimensions, then you're stuck going left or right for eternity. So you add the third dimension, and now you have left, up, and down. So the three dimensions required for the kind of world that we live in anyway allows us the largest possible range. So without that range, you're stuck. And the same thing is true of free will. It is a range of possibility. That's really what it boils down to. Now, exactly what C.S. Lewis said, free will is what made evil possible, but it also makes good possible. And so in those moments where you are confronted with a difficulty or a challenge, that's where choice, also known as free will, comes in. It's not what happens, as we've heard many times and we've discussed this. It's how you deal with it and how you choose to deal with it, or do you become the effect of an external cause? That's the crux of it, right?
And I could see it for a lot of years in my life. I was living out of fear or out of fear and from fear. And I didn't know it. I didn't see it. It was in the background. And then I started waking up to, wow, there's fear in the background. I'm afraid of certain people. I'm afraid of having honest, open, real conversations or just speaking up in moments where there's no agreement, where it's risky. And I would be stopped. I would shrink back. I would suppress. And then out of that fear, anxiousness would build up, or angst, resentment, because I wasn't confronting that fear. It's like fear and resentment are almost two horns on the head, and then get more resentful for not speaking up. But then it's a fuel that feeds fear, greater fear. So I end up suppressing. I would end up angry. And I didn't know it. And I didn't know that I didn't know it. It was just there. It existed there. But as you start waking up and you see what's there and you start looking at your life, looking at what's actually going on with you, what you're speaking to at a very high level is that we have say in the matter. Is that right? Like we have choice. I know if I have some kind of fear or anxiousness going on or my energy just feels low, or okay, I could start shifting it. I could sit still. I could just meditate, get quiet, confront it, let it come up, let it go, watch it. And you actually see that energy shifting and moving. You start seeing the thoughts that are correlated to that fear or that anxiety or frustration or anger. You start seeing the thoughts that go right along with, and you just start watching these thoughts and you start watching these emotions and you start seeing that, okay, I have these emotions, but I'm not I'm something other than that. There's something, the ability to observe tells me I'm separating. So those things aren't me. I have these things. And where are these emotions coming from? Where are these thoughts coming from? But I could sit and meditate. I could get on my yoga mat, start moving and breathing, go take a walk, do something that shifts energy rather than feeding the beast. But there's choice like that, right? But then there's things that in my life that I've also learned I can't change. Isn't it like an AA thing? There's a serenity prayer or something. Father, God, give me the ability to change what I can and accept what I can't, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll frame it this way. And first of all, I don't know that there's anybody in the world that hasn't experienced that feeling of fear, of many different levels of fear, many kinds of fear. And I believe that God installed fear in us as awake beings for a lot of different reasons, not for the reasons that ultimately often control us, but at the same time, the scripture says that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And if you think about the word fear, what does it mean? It means that we can consciously attach an idea of a consequence, right? If you think about fear, in other words, and by the way, there's another one, a fool rushes in where angels fear to tread. So what kind of person are we becoming? And there's a trajectory around fear. Now we become a very comfort-oriented person around fear. We go into denial around fear. We allow external circumstances to dictate to us many aspects of our life and our personality through fear. But at the same time, if we understand fear, and then we learn how to navigate fear and then ultimately conquer fear, and we've attached the reasons why we feel that fear because of those various personalities that you talked about, that we begin to become aware that we are not in sync, that we're not in alignment with the purpose for which we were created, the reason we came into this world. Everybody has a special reason that God allows them to exist, first of all. And second of all, did you discover that yet? Or are on your way to discovering that? And what would it be? Have you discovered what you don't want to be? And has fear played a role in that? Because a lot of times I know that when I was a child, I lost a part of a finger. You can see it right here. Did that make me now afraid of doing anything that would cause me to lose another piece of my hand and my fingers? Or did it make it actually, for me, it actually made me realize that pain only lasts so long and eventually I would recover. And so I overcame the fear of certain things, but at the same time, I put myself in harm's way in other ways because I lost a lot of the fear that I had associated with losing a part of my finger. So where's the balance? Yeah. That's the question.
Well, yeah. Like hundreds of years ago, fear was, it's a very, like you said, we have fear naturally, but hundreds of years ago, fear was an indicator of a threat. There's a bear in the territory near you. There's right. A wild animal or other tribes coming at you that are a threat to your life. And then the fear mechanism arises. But now people living in a modern life, living on their devices, living on the fear has gotten contaminated and it becomes something that people live from. You brought up that. Is it a biblical quote that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom?
Right.
Like a year or two ago, I remember I posted on my Instagram something about, I did a little video on that. And I got a lot of comments. Oh, you're fearing what an angry, mean God that you're afraid of. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, but that's how it lands for people. But what people don't see is you are afraid of man, people. You're afraid of people or because fear is within us. But if you have a fear of God, you don't have a fear of people. You don't have a fear of what people think of you. You don't have a fear of just the threat of people. Whatever people represent danger for most people, right? But when you have a fear of God, it's, to me, in my life, fearing God means, it's a fear of leaving, abandoning that source, that higher, that creator force, that God force in my life. If I leave that, there's a fear of that. If I'm doing wrong things in my life, if I have a fear of God, it's like it keeps me wise and making wise choices in my life. The kind of people I have around me or the kinds of environments I place myself in. If I But it flipped that. If I fear people and what they think of me, or I fear people and the risk that comes with people, then I've got no inner source. I become a weak, pathetic person that is completely, my life becomes based on what people think of me or how people might respond or people might react. And then I become all about managing perceptions and not saying things and not being real, not being authentic, not shooting straight. But if I have a fear of God, there's wisdom in that to live from. Does that make sense to you?
Totally. I'm just referencing right now what you just said, Matthew 10:28. Here's what it says. And do not fear those who will kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body. So,
Yeah.
And the idea is that most people really do struggle with the concept of what do you want to call it? A loving God as opposed to a vengeful God. I think there's a powerful duality in love and vengeance. And vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So if you understand the nature of the fear that we're talking about, it is that if you fear the wrong thing, that wrong thing becomes your master.
Yeah.
As opposed
it becomes
to
your master.
fearing for the right reason, right?
Yeah. I think that's what's right here in this conversation is, what do you fear? And is your fear misguided? Are you living from a perceived threat of people, but then that tells you you're looking in the wrong places? You want to look within yourself and fear no man. But the fear of living right, and before you and I are talking about, we don't know how much time we have on this earth. We just don't know.
Yeah.
And to live your life and be who you are intended to be and get clear on what your life is for and live it true and live it from God, your higher power, and that connection from your creator to your conscience, and let that lead come what may. And you be who you need to be and you say what you need to say. And there's a risk there because, well, two things. Your old identity starts dying. When you start living true, your old identity starts dying. And with that, the old friends and family and people around you that I related to that weak you that feared people, those people start either dropping off, they start getting upset with you, they start pushing back because, hey, wait, you're changing. No, I'm waking up. I'm waking up. And I don't know if it's all a choice. That's where I still get tripped up on, because someone in the YouTube comments said, okay, you've been living your life because I was sharing that during the pandemic, I came closer to God.
Nothing wrong with that.
To my spirit. The person, why is it taking you this long to come back to God?
Yeah.
And look, I've always had God in my life, and in this way, I know that I've always had God and an angel looking over me, looking out for me. Mm-hmm. And my identities, as different identities old identities have dropped off, and I've come closer. I've come closer to something within myself that's greater than myself. And there's a freedom in that. And I don't know, it's not a one-time event, but I think if you have a willingness to really look and wake up and see and answer that question, what is my life for? Mm-hmm. Actually, because those of you listening right now, there's something higher calling. And is fear stopping you? Are you still acting out of revenge and getting even with people, and you're beginning with your mom, your dad? You're still punishing them by being angry at them because they weren't who they should have been for you, or they did things they shouldn't have done, or they didn't do what they should have done. But you're locked up in this old identity. And it takes a kind of willingness to come back to humility and give up all your opinions, give up all those judgments, because those are all the fuel and the result of an identity, an old identity. And what if you were to let that old identity go and wake up to, there's free will, there's choice. But I'm in the process of discovering, what is free choice? What can I actually choose? I know in just the moment to moment of how I live my life, moment to moment. I have say in moments of who I'm going to be. Am I going to be reactive? Am I going to be angry, judge, jury, executioner? Am I going to be fearful? Am I going to shrink? I have say in moments. And as I start living and acting from my real identity, those old identities start giving me up. And the repercussions of those old identities. You wonder why you have so much fear and anxiety and frustration.
Yeah.
Stop being angry. Go forgive your mother.
Here's the
forgive your father. Start there.
Here's the actual quote from Proverbs 9:10. And it says, "The fear of the Lord is the starting point and the essence of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." So it's really important to realize there's a distinction, a very important distinction about why free will exists. Because if you didn't have free will, you couldn't choose to be right or wrong. An animal is only as good as its trainer. And so if you have a feral animal is just going to do what instinct dictates to it, and it's going to just chase every animal on the block. I adopted a dog that was found out in the woods. This dog was uncontrollable, so I couldn't keep him. Then we had another dog that was trained up from a puppy, and this dog is the best dog in the world. It won't do anything you tell it not to do. So you have a free will so that you can choose one way or another. Now, the consequences of that, this is where the fear of the Lord is the starting point and the essence of wisdom, because when you begin to attach and you begin to understand the nature of the cause and effect relationship with the world that we live in and with the creator of this world, that's when it all starts to make sense. Is that why have I not been happy in my life? Where am I going? What am I doing? What's the point of me being here? Those are all connected to what you're choosing and failing to choose.
Yeah, really good. I think this is a perfect place to wrap it up here. You all get quiet, get still, get to know yourself, really get true, start aiming true, and wake up to you, what your life is for, and come back to love. Give up resentments, give up all those little judgments that keep supporting an old identity that keeps you stuck. All right, you all, thank you for listening and staying in it this far with us. If you are watching on YouTube, leave comments. Please subscribe to the channel, Disrupt the Drift on YouTube. If you're listening on podcasts, leave a 5-star review. If you have questions, send them to disruptingthedrift@baronbaptiste.com, disruptingthedrift@baronbaptiste.com. Till next time, stay true, stay bold, keep disrupting the drift, and peace be with you.